Hello, my dear children. I hope you all are doing good. So, this video is in continuation with the chapter That Little Square Box, written by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. So, in previous video, we saw that the speaker is a nervous man who is traveling from America to India, and on the ship he sees two men boarding at the last minute, carrying a very strange object which made speaker suspicious of them, and also he overheard their conversation by which the speaker was sure that both the men were planning to do something very dangerous to the ship. So now let's continue the chapter from paragraph 17. The shorter man looked in his pocket for some time and then produced a small paper packet. He opened this and took out half a handful of whitish grains, which he poured down through the hole. A curious clicking noise followed from the inside of the box, and both the men smiled in a satisfied way. "Look out, here's someone coming," said Flanagan. "Take it down to our berth. We won't need it until tonight, and it will be safe there." So, when in the last paragraph, Flanagan asked Muller to put something into the box. So here Muller looks in his pocket and took out a small paper packet from his pocket. Then he took a handful of white colored grains and poured it in the square box through the hole. As soon as the grains reached inside the box, a very strange clicking noise was produced from inside it, listening to which both the men smiled at each other as if they were satisfied with the sound, as if they wanted to listen that sound. And Flanagan noticed someone coming, so he warned Muller to be careful as someone was coming and advised him to keep the square box down to their berth, as they would not need it until 10 p.m., as they were planning to execute their plan at 10 p.m. at night, and also the box would be safe on their berth. Now look at the next paragraph. It wouldn't do to have anyone suspecting what our game is, or worse still, have them fumbling with the box and letting it off by mistake. And the two men laughed with a cold, harsh laugh before bearing the mysterious little box away with them. Now, one of them added that it would not be good if anyone would suspect their plan or find out what their game was. And also, if something worse happened, like they get caught or something, they will hand the box very carelessly so that no one could know what was there in the box, or no one can be suspicious of that little box, and they will let it go off or leave it by mistake. After planning all these, both the men laughed in an evil manner, and then they took the box away with them. How long I remained sitting on that coil of rope, I shall never know. I tried to recall the words which had been spoken in the terrible dialogue I had overheard. Could these facts lead to any other conclusion? It was clear to me that they were the desperate agents of some group who intended means to plan something or to do something, who intended to sacrifice themselves, their fellow passengers, and the ship in one great explosion. So the speaker, after listening to their conversation, was so much stunned that he did not remember how long he remained sitting on that coil of rope thinking about their terrible conversation he overheard, and thought if the conversation had some other meaning. But it was very clear to him by their conversation that those men were agents of some organization or agents of some terrorist group who were planning to even sacrifice themselves with other fellow passengers and the ship in one great explosion. The whitish grains which I had seen one of them pour into the box no doubt formed a fuse for exploding it. I had heard a sound come from the box which might have been emitted by some delicate piece of machinery. But what did they mean by tonight? Could it be that they were putting their horrible design into action on the very first evening of our voyage? The mere thought of it sent a cold shudder over me. So, the white colored grains that speaker saw them putting in the square box was a kind of substance to make bomb in the square box explode, according to the speaker. He was sure about that as he heard a sound coming from the box which might be released some delicate piece of machinery in the box. Then the speaker thought, why did they say to execute their plan on the very first night of the journey? The speaker got extremely afraid when he thought about their plan of explosion on the very first night of the journey. During dinner, a whirl of conflicting ideas was battling in my mind. Whirl means in a confused state. What was I to do? Should I accuse them before both passengers and captain? Should I demand a few-minute conversation with the latter in his cabin and reveal it all? For an instant, I was half determined to do it. But the thought of becoming observed by all, questioned by a stranger, and confronted by the two conspirators was hateful to me. Conspirators are people who are involved in a secret plan to do something harmful or illegal. Might it not be possible that I was mistaken? No, I would procrastinate. I would keep my eye on the two men and follow them at every turn. So, at the time of dinner, the speaker was very tensed and afraid and was thinking of a plan to stop them. He thought of many different ideas in his mind. He thought about what should he do. He was confused if he should accuse those men in front of passengers and captain, or he should talk to captain and explain him the whole scenario. He made up his mind to talk to the captain, but then he thought of getting observed by all the passengers while doing it and questioned by a stranger and also facing the two conspirators. That was not good for him. It was very hateful for him, as we all know in the very beginning that the speaker was very nervous person. He was an introvert. He then thought that might be he was mistaken and no such thing was going to happen and the two men might be innocent. But then again, he thought that might be he was right and those men were planning to do something to the passengers and the ship. And so he decided to keep watch on those men and decided to follow them everywhere. I saw the villains heading to the deck after dinner and followed them. I quickly hid myself in one of the lifeboats and that was hung over the deck. In it, I could reconsider my course of action, and by raising my head, I could get a view of the two men. It was so dark that I could hardly make out their figures. A few of the passengers were scattered about the deck, but many had gone below. A strange stillness seemed to pervade the air. Pervade means to spread. So now, after dinner, the speaker saw the two men heading towards the deck and he followed them very carefully and hid himself in one of the lifeboats. There he could get a proper view of the actions done by the two men. There it was so dark that the speaker could not identify their figures as there were few more passengers spread on the deck. The speaker could sense the tension in the atmosphere as if something big was going to happen on the ship. "We were to let it off at 10, were we not?" said a voice right below my boat. So speaker heard a voice below his boat. Uh, it was the voice of one of the two men. The voice said that they were supposed to execute their plan at 10. So, yes, at 10 sharp, we have 8 minutes yet. So the next one replied that yes, sharp at 10, they would execute their plan. They would let the square box, the thing in the square box, let it go off. And they still have 8 minutes yet to execute their plan. They'll hear the drop of the trigger, won't they? So again, one of them asked that if they press the trigger, all the passengers on the ship would hear to the drop of the trigger. It doesn't matter. It will be too late for anyone to prevent its going off. So again, one of them said that it replied to the next one that it doesn't matter if the passengers heard the drop of the trigger, because it will be too late for them to make it out what happened. Till the time the passengers will realize about what was happening, their plan will be executed and it will be successful till then. There was a pause here. Then I heard Muller's voice in a ghastly whisper. There's only 5 minutes more. And then there was a pause for few minutes. After that, the speaker heard Muller saying, whispering to the next one, that they were left only with 5 minutes. And they should be ready to execute their plan after 5 minutes. How slowly the moments seemed to pass. I could count them by the throbbing of my heart. To Speaker, the time seemed to move very slowly as he counted his heartbeats in the deafening silence. It will make a sensation on land, said a voice. Yes, it will make a noise in the newspapers. So again, one of them said that their plan, if when executed, will make sensation on the land. Everyone will be surprised and everyone will be stunned after listening to it. Then the next one said that replied that yes, it will make a noise in the newspapers. That means all this news will be printed in newspapers and it will spread all over the world. The world will know about that incident. The deck was deserted now. Deserted means empty. The deck was empty now, save for those two dark figures crouching in the shadows. There seemed no hope, no help. Death stared me in the face, whether I did or did not give the alarm. So the deck was empty by then, except for those two men who were hiding themselves in the shadow, and the speaker felt hopeless and helpless as death was near to him. He could see death on his he could see death very closely. Speaker thought that he would die anyway. If he made noise, if he tried to save everybody, then too he will die. And if he does nothing, then too he will die. As the time was very left and he was confused about how to react, what to do in that situation. 3 minutes more, Flanagan said. Put it down upon the deck. Then he heard Flanagan saying that 3 more minutes were left and asked Muller to put the square box down on the deck. It was the little square box. I knew by the sound that they had placed it almost exactly under my head. So Speaker heard the sound of the square box and could guess that it was exactly under his head. A minute and a half more, Flanagan said. Shall you or I pull the string? Then again Flanagan looked at the time and reminded the Muller that 1.5 more minutes are left, and asked him if he or Flanagan would pull the string. I will pull it, said Muller. Then Muller replied that he will pull it. He would pull the string. I could stand it no longer. My nervous system seemed to give way in a moment. So Speaker was very afraid and he could not take it any longer. He could not remain calm anymore, and so he decided to do something. Stop! I screamed, springing to my feet. Stop! Springing to my feet means he jumped. So the speaker jumped and screamed to stop them. They both staggered backwards. I imagine they thought I was a spirit with the moonlight streaming down upon my pale face. So when the speaker shouted, both the men were shocked. They were surprised, and according to speaker, he thought that they both must have thought that he was a spirit. He was a ghost who was flowing in the air in the moonlight. I was brave enough now. I had gone too far to stop. Would you have the blood of 200 upon your souls? I cried. So this time the speaker was very brave enough, and he tried to stop them by asking them would they kill 200 people traveling on the ship. He is mad, said Flanagan. Time's up. Let it off, Muller. So Flanagan said that the speaker was mad and ordered Muller to let the string off because the time was over. It was 10. It was exactly 10 p.m. I sprang down upon the deck. You shan't do it, I said. So the speaker jumped from the lifeboat to upon the deck and again shouted that they should not do it. It's no business of yours. Clear out of this. So one of them said to speaker that it was none of his business and he should stay away from all that. But speaker denied and said never. He could not stay away because all the lives of 200 people on the ship was at stake. Confound the fellow. That means the Flanagan was annoyed with him and with the speaker, and he told Muller that he will make the speaker confused. He'll make him busy. I'll hold him, Muller, while you pull the trigger. He said that he would hold the speaker while Muller pulled the trigger. Next moment, I was struggling in the Herculean grasp of the man. He pinned me up against the side of the vessel and held me there. I saw the other approach the fatal box. He stooped over it and seized the string. Then came a sharp snap, a strange rasping noise. The trigger had fallen. The side of the box flew out and let off. Two grey carrier pigeons. So Flanagan held the speaker very tightly against one of the sides of the ship so that speaker couldn't spoil their plan, and speaker was struggling to get out of the grip of Flanagan so that he could stop Muller from pulling out the string of the square box. While he was struggling to get out of the grip of Flanagan, he saw that Muller had reached the explosive square box. He bent towards the square box and took hold of the string. And then he pulled the string, and speaker was surprised. He was stunned to see what happened next. He heard a very sharp noise of something from the box. The noise was strange and harsh. The voice was of the trigger falling out, and from the box he saw two grey carrier pigeons flying. Yes, he misunderstood both the men as terrorists. The two Americans were just planning a test by sending two carrier pigeons from a far distance at sea and analyze which one would arrive home first. Here is an extract clipped from the columns of the New York Herald. New York Herald was a newspaper of America shortly after our departure from America. So the news was published in the newspaper New York Herald, named New York Herald. What the news said, extraordinary pigeon flying, a novel match, has been pulled off last week between the birds of John E. Flanagan of Boston and Jeremiah Muller, a well known citizen of Lowell. The start was from the deck of the ship Spartan at 10 o'clock on the evening of the day of starting, the vessel being about 100 miles from land. So the news said that an extraordinary pigeon flying match was held between the birds of Flanagan and Muller, who were well-known citizens of Lowell. The race started from the deck of the ship sharp at 10 o'clock in the evening of the very first day of the journey, and the distance that birds had to travel was miles away. The bird which reached home first was to be declared the winner. Considerable caution had to be observed, as some captains have a prejudice against the organization of sporting events aboard their ships. So the bird reaching home first was to be declared the winner. The owners, that is Flanagan and Muller, had to execute the race very carefully and very cautiously without bringing it to anyone's notice on the ship, as many captains were biased against the bird flying race. They did not like the bird race to be done from their ship. The pigeons were confined in a specially invented trap which could only be opened by a spring. It was possible to feed them through the opening in the top. In spite of a little difficulty at the last moment, the trap was sprung open almost exactly at 10 o'clock. And now the newspaper gave all the details about the race. The pigeons were confined, they were kept in a specially invented trap, which was only possible to open it through a spring. The pigeons were fed from the opening given at the top of the box. Though they faced some difficulty in the last moment, they managed to release the pigeon sharp at 10 o'clock. Muller's bird reached land in an extreme state of exhaustion on the following morning, while Flanagan's has not been heard of. A few such matches would go far towards popularizing pigeon flying in America. So the Muller's pigeon had reached the land the very next morning. It was very exhausted as it traveled very long distance. But Flanagan's pigeon was not found, and few such matches might be conducted to popularize this pigeon flying in America. So children, I hope you have understood the explanation of the chapter. If you have got any query, please let me know. Thank you.